DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, I'm gonna give you a little bit more, actually a whole lot more, because this is the icing on the cake right here. You need the personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that actually puts all that stuff into action and makes it a real thing. The personal initiative is the go-getter energy that moves you to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And what we do is we take all of this that I just described and we put it into one package, one bundle. We made a book out of this. This is a daily masterclass right here. They go by the same name. It is called Work on Your Game. Welcome to today's masterclass and the show. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. And today's topic is how to know when you are in a bubble and how to get out of that bubble. Some people may call the bubble also the matrix or an echo chamber. Basically, when you are in an environment, this could be mentally, this could be physically, it could be socially, it could be just based on whatever you're engaging with or whatever energy you are enveloped in on a consistent basis, so much that that environment incubates your current ideas, whatever those ideas may be, ideas, opinions, and beliefs, but it does not accept, allow, or encourage any expansion of thought. That's what a bubble is. When you have certain opinions, you think this brand of laundry detergent is better than this other brand. This is just a raw example that I just came up with off the top of my head. You feel this political candidate is better than this political candidate, and that's fine if that's the way that you feel. But if you are not open to accepting, allowing, or even encouraging anyone else to offer any other opinions, and if someone happens to do so, they are dealt with in such a way that is aimed at discouraging anyone else from offering any other dissenting opinions from the opinions in the current environment, then you may be inside of a bubble. Some people might even call it a cult. If any of you ever heard of stories of people who put together cults and the people inside the cults might have killed themselves or they were killing each other or something was going on. It might have been based on some type of religion or some type of, I don't know. I can't explain to you any more about cults. I'm sure there are plenty of books about it. But today we're talking about how you can find out if you are in a bubble when it comes to your thoughts, your beliefs, your opinions, your actions. And yeah, I think that's pretty much enough. How will you know you're in one and how to get out? Point number one. Number one way you know you're in a bubble is that every opinion you see and hear agrees with your opinion. Let me say it again. Number one way you know you're in a bubble is every opinion that you see and hear agrees with your opinion. If you are a user of social media, or you're a reader of books, or you read articles on the internet, or you know any people, here's the question I'm going to ask you for you to, this is just a self-test to know whether you're in a bubble or not. When is the last time you had a conversation about any of your strongly held beliefs with a person who does not believe the same thing that you believe and actually talked about that subject? Now, if someone doesn't have the same belief and you and that person just avoided the topic, then that's different. I'm talking, when's the last time you actually talked with someone who had different beliefs from you and you and that person were able to have a civil conversation about the differences in beliefs between you and them? When's the last time that happened? If you can't think of a time, then you may be in a bubble. Now, if you can't think of a time because you don't have any strongly held beliefs, I find that very hard to believe. You have some strongly held beliefs. You maybe you're not thinking about them right now. But if you can't think of a time when you've had that kind of conversation, maybe you're in a bubble. Or if you have had that conversation, but it was not a civil conversation, it was not a respectful conversation, it became an argument, or it just blew up in both of your faces and both of you were regretting that the conversation even began in the first place, you may be in a bubble. Now, the other person might be in a bubble too, but we're talking about ourselves here today. All right. You want to make sure that, well, one way, actually, let me back up. This is one of the key ways to know that you're in a bubble is when you don't even see or hear or are not open to, and maybe that's why you're not seeing or hearing, any opinions that do not go hand in hand with the opinions that you already have. I remember when the 2016 election occurred, and when the results came out, I remember I didn't stay up that night to see who ended up winning, but I remember the next morning waking up and looking on like Google just to see the election results, and it said Trump had won the election. I realized over the next couple of days, actually it's probably within the next 72 hours, I realized I had been living in a bubble, because there was no way, I didn't think there was any way that Trump was going to win, because based on the information I had been taking in from people who appeared to be very smart and very knowledgeable and very informed on, you know, what was going on when it came to the election, they had all pretty much convinced me that there was no way he had a chance. And when I realized this, I said, all right, well, he ended up winning, which meant there's a huge population, a huge swath of the population who actually voted for this guy, who actually were supporters and fans of this guy, whereas I hadn't seen anyone who was supporting him, anyone who thought he was going to win, anyone who was on his side, meant that I was only taking in information from one point of view, from one perspective. And I want you to understand something. Just because, and I realized that meant I was in a bubble. And I want you to understand, just because I realized that I was in that bubble did not necessarily mean that I needed to change my mind and start thinking differently. All it meant was I just needed to open myself up to being influenced and just to taking in some information and some opinions and some feedback from people who had different points of view, at least when it came to that particular subject. I wanted to know, who are these other 50% of the world, or the country rather, that I'm clearly unaware of, I have not been paying attention to, and it's impossible that half the people in the United States are all just complete idiots and fools. There are probably some smart people over there that had a reason why they made the choices they made. I wanted to know what that was. And even if I was an absolute hater of Trump, which I'm not, there's no way that every supporter on that side, as I said, could be a complete idiot or a racist, which is something that some people who are in the bubble would tell you. Now, there are some reasonable fact-based arguments on the other side of every belief, on damn near every belief. If there's a belief that has to be a strongly held opinion, meaning you probably have some opposition from somewhere, there are probably some smart, reasonable people on the other side of that strongly held belief. Because if it was just a regular fact that everyone agreed to, you wouldn't have to have a strongly held belief about it. All right, water is wet. All right, there's no strong opposition to that concept. All right, there's no strong opposition to the concept of, if you have a good microphone, you can probably record a podcast and the audio will sound pretty good. There's no strong opposition to that. So if you have a strongly held opinion, it's probably because there's someone else with a strongly held opinion that is they're going against, they're pushing against what you believe. So if you have one of these strongly held opinions, understand there are some smart people on the other side of that opinion. Now, your willingness to engage with those people, just to have a conversation with them, to find out what they believe, to ask them about certain things and get their feedback, and you share your feedback, and just have a civil conversation with that person. Your willingness or unwillingness to have such a conversation should tell you a lot about whether or not you personally are in a bubble. I wanted to know, what were the reasons, what were the fact-based arguments that people have for believing what they believed when the 2016 election happened. And that would help me understand what was happening around me, because obviously I was only paying attention to maybe half of it. And this is what wise people do, ladies and gentlemen. This has nothing to do with politics, just in case anybody thought it did. This has nothing to do with politics. I don't care who's your dog in whatever political race or what party or what candidate. I don't care about any of that. That's not what the topic is here today. Wise people are always open to hearing rational, logical, fact-based arguments from every side of any conversation, of any point, of any strongly held beliefs. I'll give you an example. In the leading up to the 2020 election, which may or may not have occurred by the time you listen to this, I made a video that it started as a live stream, and I put it out on YouTube, and I said, here's why Donald Trump's going to win the 2020 election. I laid out 4 or 5 points for why he's going to win. Not based on anything really political. It's just based on certain things about the way he can draw an audience and how he gets people's attention and how he gets people's emotions engaged. And I just made some points to substantiate why he could win. If he wins, here are the reasons why he's going to win. That's what I did in that video. Then a few weeks later, I made another video. And in this one, I said, here's why Joe Biden is going to win the 2020 election. And I made 4 or 5 solid points for why Joe Biden is going to win. They were completely different reasons, but doesn't matter what the reasons are. Not really. When the votes are tallied up and we have a winner, it doesn't really matter what the reasons are why they won, because we are going to have one winner, and that's all posterity is going to remember. I'm telling you that to express to you this. A wise person is able to argue either side of an opinion. If you have an opinion on any subject and you are not able to even bring yourself, just mentally, you are not able to emotionally engage with the concept of arguing the other side of that opinion, you are probably in a mental bubble, and maybe even some other bubbles that may be even more precarious besides just the mental one. The mental one's probably the most precarious one, but some others too. Point number 2. The topic here today is how to know you're in a bubble and what to do about it once you figure it out. Number 2, if and when someone fundamentally disagrees with you, meaning your opinion, your strongly held belief, your response to that disagreement is to attack that person personally. I mean, a personal attack on that person's personality or their character, or something that has nothing to do with the actual point that they made, but you attack them in some other way. Aside from actually attacking their position, you attack the person. For example, if you say something like someone disagrees with your position on any subject in which there are opinions, and you say, oh, well, you're living in La La Land, or you're blind, or you don't know anything about fill in the blank, whatever the subject happens to be, or you are, and then you say something about them, attacking them personally, or you're an idiot, or you're stupid, or you know what kind of personal attacks you have used on other people and or have been used against you. You know what they are. Anything that is about the person and not about the point, when there's a disagreement, indicates that you are in the bubble. Let me say that one more time. This is an easy way to identify when someone's in a bubble. They are in a, what's the word? Echo chamber. They're living in an echo chamber when it comes to just mentally how they think about certain topics. Now, somebody could be completely open and a pleasure to have a conversation with on one topic, but they could be completely in a bubble on another topic. Okay, so this is on a case-by-case, subject-by-subject basis. But let me say again, anytime two people are disagreeing on a subject, any subject, and one of the people, in response to the disagreement, instead of attacking the actual substance of the point that the other person is making, hey, I believe that Jordan is better than LeBron, and it's because Jordan won 6 championships in 6 tries. That is an opinion. My opinion is Jordan's better than LeBron, and also the supporting evidence, in my opinion, which is factual, is that Jordan won 6 championships in 6 tries. That's why I think Jordan's better than LeBron. Someone responds to me by saying, you're blind, you don't know anything, you're a hater, you don't know, you're out of touch with reality, you don't know anything about basketball, you're stupid. All right, those are all what we call ad hominem attacks, which means you're attacking me personally, you're attacking my personality, my character, but not actually addressing the point that I made. This is something that we found, you have seen this plenty of times, I'm sure, on social media these days. When people can't agree on a point, they actually start attacking the person as a human being. instead of attacking the actual points that are being made here. And I talked about this back in episode number 1605, how adults have failed the youth, especially these days, when some of the things that we were taught in elementary school not to do, to say bad things about other people simply because we disagreed on a certain point. Now we got the adults doing it. All right, it used to be only elementary school kids did this, maybe middle school, maybe a little bit in high school. But now we got the adults doing it, grown men and women who are supposed to be setting the example for the youth. All right, now they're doing this. Anything attacking the person instead of the point indicates that you're probably in a bubble. Because, and this is the reason why people do this, when someone attacks you personally instead of attacking your point of view in any form of disagreement, is because that person's brain, for whatever reason, we don't know, I can't read people's minds, their brain cannot comprehend anyone having a different opinion from theirs. They just can't understand how you could have a different opinion. Right? And this is why I just gave the example of how I made a video and said, here's why Trump will win. Then I made another video and said, here's why Biden would win. All right? Regardless of who I think is going to win or who I want to win or who I'll vote for or not vote for, I'm able to argue both sides of that conversation. I can understand why somebody would support Trump. I can also understand why somebody would support Biden. And I can understand why somebody thinks Jordan is the best and somebody thinks LeBron. I could also understand somebody saying, oh, Kobe's the best. I can understand. I can make an argument for all 3 points. Any wise person can argue every side of an opinion. Did everybody hear me say that? I'm going to say that probably again before this episode is over. If you cannot argue every side of an opinion, you can only see your side, and then you personally attack anyone who does not share your side, you are in a bubble. This is a sign of also, not only that you're in a bubble, it's a sign of emotional immaturity. But today we're going to stick to talking about the bubble, because that's a whole different conversation. When you have a belief that is backed by substance, meaning you believe something, and even though it's not a fact, it's just what you believe, it's how you feel, but you can back up that belief with some actual substance. Here's why I feel this way. and you can say, this is reason number one, here's another reason, here's an example, here's some evidence, here's some other things I know, here's some factual points. When you can back up your belief with substance, you don't have a problem with someone disagreeing with it. Why? Because you know that you can defend your belief. You don't have to attack that person as a human. You can say, okay, I understand what you're saying, but let me give you, here's some evidence, here's another point, here's something else, here's some substance. When your only defense of your opinion is to attack the other person, or if you have some defenses, but then when your defenses aren't working and you run out of material, there are no more bullets in your chamber, you start attacking the person personally, that is a sign that your belief may be a house built on sand. You know what happens when a house is built on sand? When a big wave comes in, the house falls apart, it disintegrates. Now, a house built on rock is a little bit harder for the waves to knock it down. If you start attacking someone personally, whether you have shared a few of your evidence-based points, or maybe you didn't have any to begin with, but you start attacking anyone personally at any point in the conversation, that may be a sign that you're in a bubble and that your belief is built on sand. When I say, for example, too much confidence is not your problem. This is something I did a TED talk on this topic, and you can also watch some important videos I did on confidence at toomuchconfidence.com. When I say too much confidence is not your problem, and somebody may disagree with me. They may say, Dre, you know what? Too much confidence can be a problem because this, and they have their points. They have their points that they can make, and that is absolutely fine. Listen, I could argue their points better than them probably, but I can also defend my position against that disagreement. If all I did, if someone came up to me and said, Dre, I disagree, too much confidence can be a huge problem, and then they list their reasons, and what I do is start calling them names and say, you're obviously blind, you're an idiot, you don't know what I know, you don't have the resume that I have, and I start attacking them personally, it's a sign that I'm emotionally defending my, at least mentally, my bubble existence. And it's also, again, a sign of immaturity emotionally that I can't stay in the conversation. And I've talked about this recently, how to have conversations with people, how to have conversations with people with whom you disagree. That was in masterclass number 1529, how to talk to people with whom you disagree. And let's say you think somebody is hypocritical. How do you deal with a hypocrite? I talked about that in masterclass number 1530. So 1529 and 1530, and a couple days before that, 1527, how to disagree respectfully. One way is to offer some actual points, some actual substance to your argument, not just, again, making personal attacks on someone just because they committed the criminal offense of disagreeing with you. Point number 3. Today's topic here today is how to know you are in a bubble. You know you're in a bubble when you cannot formulate a solid argument for why you believe what you believe. Can you formulate an argument for your belief? What is something that you strongly believe and you have a problem with other people not believing it? Can you back it up with a solid argument? I mean, some actual evidence, some actual substance, something that even a person who disagrees with you would have to agree with. All right, this is a good test. This is a great litmus test for if your beliefs are built on rock or they're built on sand, is can you share the reasons for your belief, the substance behind it, with someone who disagrees with you, and they have to agree with at least the evidence. They have to agree with the substance. It doesn't mean they're going to change their opinion, but would they agree with the substance? If you can't get someone who disagrees with you to agree with the substance of your belief, there may not be much behind it. When your beliefs get challenged, questioned, or even proven inaccurate, do you reject that red pill, as they say? Do you reject that proof and tune out what you just experienced? Or do you say, you know what, wow, you know what, maybe what I believed wasn't as solid as I thought it was. When the election happened 4 years ago, I said there's no way Trump was going to win, then he won. I said, all right, my belief there was no way he would win got proven inaccurate, and I had to swallow that red pill and say, oh, wait a minute, there's a whole bunch of information out here, there's a whole bunch of people out here, all of them can't be idiots, who are thinking something completely different than what I was thinking. Let me find out what I'm missing. Now, are you able to do that when your belief somehow, some way gets disproven? Example of this, another example is when a person has a stance that you challenge, for example. They have some belief, you challenge it. You ask them a question, you offer something to go against it, and you even offer some evidence for your challenge. And the person goes right back to their one point of their argument. And they'll say something like, here's an example of this, and y'all have heard this many times. If you don't see what's happening, you just can't be convinced. I'm done talking to you. Anybody heard that? If you don't know how this is affecting people, have you heard that? These empty comments don't actually fill in the blanks with what they're claiming to refer to. Somebody, I say to somebody, okay, well, what is your reason for having that belief? That's my question. You have this belief? Fine, I accept that you have this belief. Now I'm challenging it by asking you a question. Why do you have this belief? And the person responds by saying, well, Dre, look, if you can't see what's happening, you obviously are just blind, or you're just you're being willfully ignorant. And that's their statement. All right. So they didn't actually notice, they didn't actually answer the question. I asked them for a reason why they believe what they believe, and they have nothing to offer. Or they'll offer something such as, well, they'll offer some random examples. And this is something that happened not too long ago. There was a woman who was on my email list, and she read an article of mine, and she said, well, Dre, I was talking about opportunity. And she was like, well, certain people aren't getting opportunities in life. I understand what you're saying here, that people need to do X, Y, Z, whatever point I was making in the article. But there are people who are not getting opportunities. They should be allowed to get opportunities just like everyone else. I said, okay, fair enough point. Can you give me an example? Give me an example of the point that you are making. This is what I replied to this woman. She wrote me back. And she sent me like 3 links to articles from random places that she's not from, that had nothing to do with her directly. And I wrote her back, and I'm like, listen, these random examples, quote unquote, that you pick up do not prove your point. They do not support the argument that you made in your email. This is exactly what I said. They don't support the argument you made in your email. The thing about examples, ladies and gentlemen, this is out of my response. I'm gonna go back to the response in a minute. The thing about examples is that you can find an example to support anything. You can find an example to support any argument. All right, I could say LeBron James is a terrible basketball player, and I can show you an example of a game where he played terribly. Here's an example. Here it is. Here's the box score. Look at it. Here's the video. Does it actually support the overall argument? Not really, because there's so much evidence that goes against it that doesn't really prove the point. So just because you can pull up some random links off the internet of any argument that you want to make does not prove what you're saying. Does everybody hear what I just said? Being able to pull a random link off the internet of something that has nothing to do with your actual experience. And sometimes I've had people send me, has happened to me many times. And maybe some of you have had this happen. Maybe some of you are guilty of it. I'll ask someone to defend their point. Why are you saying what you're saying? And they'll send a link to some article that I know that they haven't read. And I'll say back to them. I remember I was doing this in text messages with someone once. And we were talking about something. I said, all right, where's your proof? Where's your evidence and the source for these claims that you're making? And the person put a link, and I opened the link and I looked at it. It was like a academic research paper. The paper was like 35 pages long, PDF. And I said back to the person 2 minutes after they posted the link, I said, did you read this document? Summarize it for me without looking it up. And this was a group chat. So there were other people who saw this whole conversation happen, and there was a whole lot of laughing that happened after that, because this person clearly had not read that document. They just grabbed the link whose headline supported their argument that was paper thin, and they immediately got called out on their bullshit. Listen, if you have a strongly held belief, I'm talking to all of you out here now, and you can't back it up with some actual evidence, some real substance, maybe you should question why you believe what you believe. Maybe that belief was assigned to you and you didn't actually come about it through your own thinking. This happens to us a lot in life. So anyway, back to that email that I was saying to the person who sent me like 3 links, random things that had nothing, they were not connected at all to anything that she was actually saying. I mean, they were quote unquote examples, but it didn't prove her point. And I said, listen, you just pulled these random links off the internet. You probably didn't even read these articles. Now you're telling me this is proof? And I wrote it back and said, do you have any actual evidence, some things that you can point out, that you can say, all right, this happened to me. I know this person, this thing happened, or this thing is happening consistently. Can you give me anything that's consistently happening or that has happened in your actual life, this person who wrote me, that proves what you're saying? And I'm still waiting on that person's reply. This was probably 2 months ago. So you tell me. Point number 4. Today's topic is how to know you are living in a bubble. Number 4, you are unwilling to have a respectable, open conversation with someone with whom you fundamentally disagree. Case in point, the email exchange that I just shared with you. This person knows me. I've met this woman who I'm referring to. She knows me. I know her. We have met in person, and we have had other interactions. I'm not going to say anything else because I would be giving away identifying information. She could have went back and forth with me. I would have gladly engaged with her had she responded. She hasn't responded yet. I doubt she's going to respond because I called her out on her bullshit. There were that was an argument where it was like a donut. There was a big hole in the middle. All right. If you are unwilling to have a respectable, open conversation with someone with whom you fundamentally disagree, it could be for several reasons. One, maybe you just don't have the substance to back up your argument. Two, maybe your argument was full of shit at the very beginning. Maybe your argument is actually good, but you don't know how to argue it. Or maybe you're living in a bubble. Maybe you simply dismiss another person as wrong or dumb or bad or racist or blind or whatever, and just refuse to engage with them because they have an opinion that you disagree with. This should be a sign to you that your position lacks substance. You don't want your position held up to the light. If you are not willing to stand on your point of view and defend it against scrutiny and against challenge and against someone who believes the exact opposite of you, maybe your belief is not as strong as you thought it was. Just something for you to consider. Let's recap today's class, which is today is how you know that you are in a bubble and how to get out of the matrix. Number one, if every opinion you see and hear agrees with yours, that is because you have somehow, some way manufactured your life to only be around information and people and energies that coincide with what you already believe, which is fine if you just want to stay in that bubble for the rest of your life. The challenge is there's a lot of useful information and useful people and useful energies and ideas out there that would challenge the way that you think, that would actually help you expand and grow if you be willing to engage with them. Now, will there be a little bit of discomfort involved? Yes, but if you're unwilling to deal with discomfort, I have no idea why the hell you're listening to a show called Work on Your Game. Number two, when someone fundamentally disagrees with you, your response is to attack them personally. Not attacking their actual position, but attacking their character or their personality simply because they don't have the same belief that you have. All right, this is something that kids do, but nowadays we got adults doing it. I talked about this in a recent masterclass. Make sure you're not doing it. Number three, you cannot formulate a solid argument for why you believe what you believe. So you share with someone that you believe something, they ask you, why do you believe it? And you can't offer any actual information, any useful evidence for why you have that belief. If that is you, you should question where you got that belief from. Did you just pick it up from your parents? Is it something all your friends had? Is it one of your favorite celebrities has that belief? Do you have any real reason for why you believe that thing? If you cannot answer the question, maybe you should question where you got that belief from. It was probably handed to you and assigned to you. You didn't actually come about it through your own thinking. And number four, you are unwilling to have a respectful, open conversation with someone with whom you fundamentally disagree. This applies to about 90% of the population right now. If you are dismissing people as wrong or dumb or bad or stupid or whatever and refusing to engage with them simply because their ideas are different from yours, this is a huge red flag sign that your position lacks substance because you don't want your position held up to the light via engagement with someone who is going to challenge it. So it's probably not worth much. Work on your game. Dre, all